What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We are going to talk about ISO classes to put on your Asgardians. Now, the main focus of Asgardians is a war defense team. They have a lot of counters these days, but they're still a go-to team. A beefy Hela can make for a terrifying fight. So they are still a mainstay in terms of your war defense, and that should be your main focus for them in terms of how to mod them up for ISO classes. So that's what we're primarily going to be focusing on here with Asgardians. So let's take a look at the MSF.gg bot, because I think this is important to note. There's one weird thing here with this class. I'm gonna see it right here with Heimdall. You can see that a lot of people have Striker on Heimdall. I'm not a fan of this. This is I think, in my opinion, this is a big mistake. We're gonna talk about that here in a moment. But you can see we have a lot of Raider on Hela, a lot of Striker on Thor, Fortify on Sif, and then Skirmisher and Healer on Loki. So we're gonna talk about all of that right now. Now, if you go over to MSF.gg and you take a look at the assist counter info, this is important because this gives you an idea of what the ISO attack bonus is going to do if you have Striker. And I can tell why people have Striker on Heimdall. It's because they don't realize that it's based off the assist and not off the primary basic. Because the primary basic has a chance to call a random Asgardian ally. Unfortunately, if you use this with a bonus ISO attack, you're not calling assist with Asgardian, so you do not want to be using Striker on Heimdall. Not a fan of this. Now, you can see there's a lot of bonus damage here with like a damage and piercing damage on a lot of these characters. Loki just has straight piercing damage, and then everybody else has a mixture of normal damage and piercing damage on their bonus attacks or on their assist counters. So you're not getting anything special with your bonus ISO attacks. There's no real reason to be prioritizing Striker on anybody outside of Thor. So let's start with Thor. The reason I have Striker on Thor is because of his passive, and this is the main reason why you see Striker on like Cole Obsidian and other characters do a lot of outside of turn attacks with their passives, because they can't be affected by boosted by Skirmisher or Raider. So if you can boost the damage on that passive attack, you're going to have a lot more damage with that character. That's why Cole Obsidian is a great character for Striker, because you boost that damage on his passive and he just wrecks. And that's the same kind of concept you want to follow here with Thor. His passive, when he gains 5 stacks of charge, attacks all enemies 240% damage. You can boost that up to 260%. And then he gains bonus damage as well. Honestly, yeah, so he gets a lot of damage, and this is why you want to have Striker on him, because you're boosting that passive damage, and that's what makes him a threat within war defense. Because if you can't get rid of Thor, he's going to absolutely hurt you with that passive, because he's just wrecking people. So that's why you want to go for Striker on Thor, so you can boost that damage. If you want to go for a secondary class on him, Raider works pretty well because he's got a lot of splash and chain and team-wide attacks. His Lightning Storm attacks everybody on the enemy team. His Hammer Throw can chain to targets. So he does have some good chances of landing critical hits and applying vulnerable. Raider works like that. Skirmisher can work as well because he can be called to assist by Heimdall. So Skirmisher works as well. Those are 2 other options, but I think Striker by far is the best class to go for Thor. Now for Hela, I have Raider because she has a lot of team-wide attacks. She has a lot of bonus damage, bonus attacks. Death Knives, as you guys already know, Death Knife deals a lot of damage. If you can land critical hits with this, this is vulnerable on enemy targets, and then she and other Asgardians can just wreck them with that vulnerable on them. Remember, vulnerable increases the damage taken by 10%. Doesn't stack with defense down, but it's still an option for her. So her Death Knives deals a ton of damage. You can then boost that with crit chance and crit damage to cause it deal more damage. Her Black Blade will attack 2 targets every time. Command Undead, it will call the Greg to attack, but Greg, if you guys remember, will not get an ISO class. He will just get the boost of the stats from the Iso-8 matrix. So you don't have to worry about getting Raider on Greg. You just want to make sure he has the boosted stats on him. Raider, I think, is working really well for her. Skirmisher can work as well because the assist again with Heimdall. And yeah, I think she's really good for that. Now, one other thing you guys are probably going to wonder is the healing with whenever Greg dies. That is tied to Greg himself, so you can't boost this because with a healer class, if you guys are wondering about that, this is just healing through Greg, so that's not going to work either. I know people were wondering about that. You can't boost the healing from that with healer on on Hela. So yeah, Raider works for her, Skirmisher works well. Let's talk Loki and Heimdall because they're both in the same position. You can see I got healer on both of them. And this I think is important for pretty much all of your Asgardians because all of them have this passive where they can heal for 25% of their max health on their turn. Now with that healer matrix, you can increase that by potentially up to 30% of their max health per turn at level 5 of healer. That's a pretty big deal. That's kind of ridiculous. And that just kind of shows the power of Asgardians and what you can see with them on defense. And honestly, you could make a case for putting healer on all of the Asgardians. The problem is that can easily open them up against heal block. If someone has heal block out, that kind of neutralizes that healer ISO class. So it's one of those things where heal block is very easy to counter that. You have X-Force that can do that, I believe. AIM can do heal block as well. There's quite a few teams who can land out heal block, and that can just screw up the whole thing. So you don't want to go heavy on healer for everybody. It's tempting, but trust me, you don't really want to do that. I would not recommend that, but it does give a certain amount of appeal here, and that honestly I think is why healer is a good option for some of these characters. So Loki and Heimdall are both great healers. You can also put Skirmish on Loki because of the assist with Heimdall. Skirmish on Heimdall works as well, but he also has a lot of team-wide attacks. His Divine Foresight can attack everybody on the enemy team. So you could get Raider with that along with Sworn Oath. Both those have options with Raider. So Raider could possibly work as well for Heimdall, but I like healer on those two a whole lot better than really anything else that they have on their within their inventory. So yeah, healer works for both of those. And then let's talk about Sif. Sif is the final character to talk about here. And again, healer works great for her. Fortifier also works great. If you fight against Sif, you know she's annoying to take down. It feels like she blocks everything. She's like Captain America in that she just blocks everything. And it's because of her passive. With this, she gains 75% block chance total. If you upgrade this to level 5 on her passive, you're talking 85% block chance at that point. It's a little crazy. So she's able to block pretty much everything. She's blocking a decent amount, but I mean, yeah, she gains defense up and 2 deflect at the start of the fight. It's, oh man, it's crazy. But again, yeah, here it is. Again, she's able to heal herself for 25% of her max health on turn. So that's why healer has some appeal there, but I like Fortifier for the simple reason that she's tanking. You have to go through her. She's blocking a lot. So if you can build up barrier on her and keep it going with Fortify, I think you've got something there where she's constantly just building up Fortify on herself. She's constantly taunting. You have to get through her. She's just building up barrier. It makes for an annoying fight, and I think that's one of the powers of that's like the power of Iso-8, especially with Fortify on your tanks, your annoying tanks like this. This is where Fortifier really shines because she doesn't have a huge health pool. She's only got about 150,000 here at gear 12 at level 65. Not a lot of health, but she's able to block a lot. She's able to deflect a lot. So that health pool is kind of it's kind of small, but because she's blocking so often and building up that barrier with Fortify, I like that option. Again, healer works for her as well. One other thing you could do with her taunt ability, that's not her taunt. With her taunt, she's able to gain counter. So you could try to go for Skirmisher on her because she can counter, remove buffs from vulnerable targets you've built up with like Loki, Heimdall, Hela, whoever else. You could go for that with her with counter and everything. So Skirmisher has some potential there. She also has this rebounding attack on her ultimate. So I think I've seen people try to make a case for Raider with her, but honestly, I think there's better classes for her. I would go Fortifier, then Healer, then maybe Skirmisher after that, and leave Striker and leave Raider off to the side. There's no point putting them on her. She's not a big damage dealer. She's more a tank. She's supposed to sit there and soak up the damage, and that's why I like Fortify on her. So in all, there is some great potential for full healer across the board with Asgardians, but there's also strengths here like Thor with his passive, Hela with her team-wide attacks and able to attack multiple times, Sif with her constant tanking and deflecting and everything. I like this team. I think this is a very good rounded out ISO class section on them. A lot of different options for each of them, and also that healer really works as like a central focus on them if you want to go down that path. So let me know down below, what classes are you guys running on your Asgardians? Let me know, what do you guys think about these classes? Do you guys have any questions? As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more Marvel Strike Force content in the future. And as always, I will see you guys next time.